Welcome to Where's the Any Key, the podcast where we talk shop about topics, tips, and trends for the modern IT admin. I'm your host, Ryan Bacon, the IT support manager at JumpCloud. All right, joining me today is Chavarous Kennebrew. He is the senior system analyst at Irmax Corporation. How are you doing, Chavarous?
I'm doing good, Ryan. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. To start with, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, most definitely, man. Where do I start? Again, as he said, my name is Chavarous Kennebrew, and I love everything IT related. I love it from the beginning of time to right now to the future. I've always loved IT from the beginning of my kindergarten year. My mom bought me a Whiz Kid back in like '87. That was my first computer. And from then, I have done everything I can do to learn about it, to tear it apart. And it's just been my life's passion. Although I've had several other careers, my life's passion has always been related around IT. I'm a father, I'm a husband, but at my core, I'm a computer. That's me.
All right. That's a great way of putting it. And actually you mentioning that you've had a lot of other careers and jobs leading up to your time in IT kind of really does lead into what we're going to talk about. And that is, you know, being not only being an IT generalist, but reaching out and using those outside experiences to help you in IT. Because when we were first talking, we, you know, we came to the conclusion that that you and I have very similar uh,
Mhm.
experiences. You know, we worked in different places, but we both had long stints in things outside of IT before coming into IT and view that as a benefit. So
Oh, yeah.
to kick things off, why don't you go ahead and start with what are some of the key things that you learned in your previous jobs and previous careers that help you the most in IT?
Oh, dude, where do I start? Man. Um, you know, one thing I was thinking about after you and I had the conversation last time is my first job, actually my first and my second job. I was in high school in Germany and I was a janitor. I was first a janitor at a gym, and then I was a janitor at the PX at the Post Exchange. And one thing that taught me that I've taken from jobs after that to right now is you're never too good to clean up someone else's trash. And man, if that hasn't really helped me, and it doesn't even have to be trash, someone else's mess is, in this profession, you'll come across many things that you would have done a different way, and it doesn't necessarily make it trash, but you do have to clean it up because positions change, people change, and you'll always have someone who thinks it should have been done a different way. So you just got to be prepared to take your broom out, sweep up that trash, and lay down a new floor, or just lay down some new groundwork and move forward. And every time someone comes in and change, you've got to be flexible and be ready to do to perform whatever task it is they're looking for. And I took all that away from sweeping up garbage cans when I was working in the gym. I hated it, but 20 something years later, I'm still sweeping up trash. I'm still sweeping it up.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that, with the perspective that different people have different ways of doing things.
Mhm.
When I so I had the really what I seem to think of as a unique experience of when I left my previous employer to come to JumpCloud. I actually had the opportunity to connect with the person who came after me there,
Okay.
and we talked a lot about stuff. So it was a very interesting situation where we both had different ways of doing things, and he came into it. It was a nonprofit, so a fairly small nonprofit, and he came in from a lot more corporate, a more corporate background. And he told me, he's like, he came in there and he's like, why the heck did this Ryan person do things this way? and, and we started talking about it. When he actually started diving in, he's like, oh, he's like, it's because this is what he had to work with. But even that
Yeah,
being said, going back to the different people have different ways of doing things. He found different ways to do things like that I didn't even think of.
yeah,
So it was good. So it was a really interesting experience going in there, and how he came in to clean up my trash.
I totally
and
agree.
and you're right. You're never too good for it, and you should never feel that you're too. It's humility. You should always be
Yes,
approaching your job with humility, and yeah, that's a
yes.
good thing to learn.
I
I'm
agree with you
I'm
wholeheartedly, man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pitch in with one thing that I learned on one
Okay.
of my back jobs. So I had several sales jobs before coming into IT, and I will be the first person to admit that I am not wired for sales. I am at best an average salesperson, so I'm glad to be out of that role. But learning the sales skills, all the soft skills and communication skills have really helped me a lot. But something that's helped me more is I deal with a lot of vendors. I deal with a lot of salespeople outside of the salespeople within Jump Cloud. But so I deal with a lot of people trying to sell to me, and knowing how salespeople think, and knowing the practices, and knowing how to interact with them has helped me so much. And not just fairing figuring out when they're just blowing smoke, but also like building good relationships with my vendors, being
Yes.
able to talk the
Yeah.
same language with them. That has been like critical to
Yeah.
making that aspect of my job bearable.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? It's the jargon. It's knowing the jargon and knowing how to talk and communicate effectively with someone, with another vendor. That does go a very long way because it builds trust, it builds respect, and then they do sometimes tend to go out a little bit extra for you because they see that you
Mm-hmm.
respect their craft. Because sales is nothing but a craft. It is a really big craft. So yeah, man, you
It
make a
really
very
is.
valid point on that, Ryan. Yeah, I don't think,
Yeah, and
I thought about becoming a IT salesman at one point, and I am with you wholeheartedly. That is, no, that's not for me. That, that's a completely different set of skills, man.
yeah, and I will
Oh,
I will say this. I have said this, and I'll keep saying this, that I feel that the sales team that we have here at Jump Cloud is one of the best that I've ever dealt with.
okay.
And and I give them all credit where credit due, because selling to IT people we're probably one of the most difficult customers and prospects to deal with, because we're ornery, we're opinionated, and
Oh, and we know,
we want to
we
do
know.
stuff our way. So
Yes, yes. Yeah, I
so
didn't. Your guys' salesmen, very great. Some of the ones that I've had an opportunity to deal with, they've been extremely personable, and that's what I appreciate most from dealing with IT vendors are those that don't necessarily try to sell you the product. They want to talk to
mhm.
you about the product, let the product sell itself. I don't want to push it on you. I want to demonstrate to you what it is, how it can help you achieve whatever goal or goals that your company wants. Let you use it as a trial, and then I'll talk to you. Ask me if you have any questions. But those that continuously push and prod and want to tell you about the benefits of it, and that 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 doesn't make a great salesman for me. So I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Jump Cloud, and it was a non brainer when we decided to use.
Mhm.
That's not a plug or anything, but it was just a non-brainer. I mean, it's a good product. The product sold itself, so here we are.
Yeah, and there are plenty of other vendors that I have relationships with where we're not active customers for them, but I stay in contact on a regular cadence because who knows in the future their product their their product and our needs will align, and I already have a good relationship with them. So I think that understanding that sort of thing is has been really helpful. And because they've come back and been really great resources as well, just with
Mhm.
information and that sort of thing. And that goes on to the soft skills side of
Yes.
things, where
Yes.
any career where you have to heavily rely on those soft skills, whether you're in sales, whether you're in customer service, whether you're in a server at a restaurant.
Hmm.
When I'm looking you know at prospects and that sort of thing, yes, there's a need for a good technical foundation, but looking at people who have that experience with dealing with people is a huge plus, and I can't overstate that enough.
Agreed. Agreed. And that brings me, one of my other careers. You and I talked about it briefly. I was a claims adjuster, and I've done
Hmm.
non-standard insurance. I've worked with some reputable insurance companies, and I've worked with some that had a horrible reputation. But the soft skills that you speak of that I gained from working in that profession, it has helped me tremendously to deal with people in other professions. Like in you've got to learn how to negotiate and how to talk to people and how to be talked to or how to be talked at. You've got to deal
Hmm.
with you know thousands, hundreds of thousands of different people from all across the country who are in very stressful situations. So when a VP comes up to you and asks you why your server went down, it doesn't make it as bad. It's okay to deal with. It's easier to deal with, or you can deal with it because I had a customer once call in when I worked for an insurance company and yell at me for something that I could not control. The same with this, I could not control it. But because I had been yelled at all my 20s at a call center, I was ready. I was ready, and I was able to articulate myself and say what the issue was, how we come to a resolution and move forward. And like you said, man, it's those soft skills that you gain from all these other careers or professions, and you just don't realize how they come in handy. But when they do come in handy, you're ready to use them. It's just an arsenal of soft skills that you keep at your disposal.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned being able to deal with people yelling at you, and dealing with stress and pressure and stuff like that. That's another thing that I took away from one of my non-IT careers. So before I was in IT, I was in printing, and
I'm sorry.
I did
I'm sorry.
it was both an amazing experience and horrendous at the same time. so so I did everything in there from production work to account management to design and I had my fingers in like every single bit, and that's where also I got my first like professional IT gig. I convinced the owners. I'm like, hey, let me be your IT guy and like make it part of my official job description. They're like, go for it. So I will always be thankful for them because it was that really got me started in getting that critical first few years of IT experience.
Okay,
But
okay.
I will say this: it's it's amazing the amount of value that people put onto some ink on some paper. Like when they want that birthday invitation out, if it's not ready in 3 hours, it is going to be the end of the world.
Oh
And
man.
it was so that means the dead our sales team there was just you know trying to make the customer happy at any way they possibly can, which meant production deadlines were super tight, and if something slipped, it was it was like all hands, everybody scrambling to get stuff done, insanely stressful. But that when I got into like corporate IT, when I moved on from there, so while I was working on my graduate degree, I interned at Google on their physical security team. So we did, access control, security cameras, guest kiosk, all that sort of thing. So I went through my first bit of training within my like first or second day, like actually taking tickets and stuff like that. I got it, a standard ticket came in that this badge reader wasn't working. So I'm like, okay, I'll take it, start going through the process there. And then all of a sudden, like somebody would ping me, be like, hey, I see you're working on this ticket. What's the status? Then another person's like, hey, what's the status on this ticket? And like, what's going on? And then the TPM, the technical project manager on the team, came over and is like, hey, I'm getting a lot of people asking me about this ticket. And I'm like, okay, I'm going through here working on it. And it turns out that badge reader was for the main access point for Google's New York Chelsea office. So that was they had security, they're having to check people IDs and let them in one at a time. So
man.
if you can imagine the amount of
Yes.
of productivity loss
Yes.
just from there, that they were, I mean, people were going crazy, because it was going down. But it's like, okay, that's I'm and my whole train of thought is like, I'm working on it. It's from the very
Yeah.
beginning, it had my full attention, and
Yeah.
that's what I was working on, so we get through. So it's like, okay,
I'm
all the
working on
stuff
it.
going on,
Yeah. Just give
and
me a
like,
second.
okay,
You're like,
it was like, we got it. We'll go through. It got taken care of. People are happy, and the there were comments afterward. It was like they're like, I'm surprised you weren't freaking out with all these people coming at you and being like, hey, what's status, what's going on, when is this going to get fixed? And I, at that point, I thought back to all those times was like, why aren't those birthday invitations done? And like everybody scrambling, and years of dealing with that made made this whole thing, which was a huge issue. I don't want to underplay the fact that it was a massive problem, a lot bigger of a problem than, like I said, ink on paper.
yeah, yeah.
but 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 dealing with this, all those tight deadlines and all that stress in printing really prepared me for dealing with stressful situations in IT. And like that's my biggest takeaway from my time in printing.
Man, you brought back some really bad memories when it comes to that. You're in the thick of it, and you're on the cusp of figuring it out. And now you've got instant messenger, you've got Cisco pinging, you've got Microsoft Teams, all these different avenues of people trying to reach you, and it's just like, I can't do it. I can't fix it and tell you how I'm fixing it while I'm fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, you really brought it home on that one, because that is near and dear to my heart. That is near and dear to my heart, man. I don't think anyone who's been in this profession long enough doesn't have a horror story about having to deal with that. So kudos to you for keeping your head attached.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, really what it comes down to, it's our job in IT to take care of problems
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to fix problems. And you know you can't fix a problem if you don't keep a level head.
agreed,
So
agreed.
so
Yeah,
I think of the meme of the dog sitting in the burning room where he's like, everything is fine.
yeah.
And that's almost the mindset that you have to take, where the building may be burning down around you, but it's just like, okay, I can't let that freak me out.
No, no, yeah, it's hot, but just give me some water. Let me fix this. We'll deal with it later. I'll deal with the heat later. It was just funny that that meme is again near and dear to my heart because I won't show it. I won't show the stress. I'll continue the task, but my body will melt. I will be pouring down sweat. I'll come cool as a cucumber, but the sweat on the surface of my face, it is just pouring down, man. So I think I'm going to put that as my screensaver from here on out.
Yeah, I don't know how many times when you've had that emergency, we've had that emergency situation, and and then it's game time until it's
Yeah,
fixed, and then after it's done, you could then you could just collapse on the couch.
yeah, yeah. Man, we had a very massive, a few years ago, one of the companies I worked with, we had a massive outage, Ryan. Everything was out. And I'm talking about databases. I'm talking about AD. I'm talking about 100% of our IT was affected. And I handled our service desk solution for the hospital. So I was the admin
Mhm.
for that, and I was responsible for making sure we had about 40 servers on that particular application. I was responsible for them all. They were all down. So that was the main communication channel. That's how we kept track of all the ticketing system and
Mhm.
whatnot. It was our ITSM. So that was down. And this lasted us for about a month where we kept having these outages, these this up and down. And, I'm on call 24/7. 3 o'clock in the morning, I have to run to the data center, work with the database teams and everyone, try to bring these applications back up. So at the end of all of this, we found out, I think a switch or something went bad. It was faulty. But at the end of all that, after this full week, this was a hell week, dude. Um, I went to my mom's house to decompress. My cousin called me at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought it was work.
Oh no.
PTSD, dude. I thought it was work. And I picked up and I was ready. I'm like, Chavarous Kennebrew, what can we do? And he's like, hey man, what you doing? I I hung up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk to him. I had to call him later and apologize and explain to him I had just been on a high alert because my application had been down for weeks on end and I had been at a data center trying to grind and figure out why it kept failing. And he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning just to say hello. I wasn't ready for that, Ryan. I wasn't ready,
Well,
man.
now, in all fairness, I don't think I'm ever ready for a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, even if it is to just say hello. So I
Yeah.
I can only imagine getting that, which would annoy me normally, on top of that
On top
stressful
of it.
week of burning the candle at both ends. So that's oh man, I feel for you. But and that's another thing, to bring it back around to a broad experience helping out IT is that when you're getting to that point where you're trying to solve a problem, like critical thinking and problem solving is not an exclusive domain of IT. So
Yes.
my undergrad degree is in accounting, and I was originally planning to be an accountant. Never got there. I graduated school and realized that to get to the jobs that I wanted in accounting, which were the analysis and auditing
Yeah.
and all of that stuff that involves the critical thinking and the problem solving and stuff like that, I'd have to go through at least a few years of bookkeeping style stuff and working the general ledger, and that didn't really interest me. So I was still I was working in IT at the time, and so I decided to just stick with IT. But the point is that, like, I've talked to people in in the finance field who are looking to break into IT, like on multiple occasions,
Mhm.
or people from other fields that involve a lot of analytics, so heck, like mechanics. I've talked to them, looking to break it in, like all of these things, all of these all these fields and all of these industries, they involve a problem and figuring out what that problem is and how to solve that problem,
Yes.
and and critical thinking and everything like that. And really, it doing that stuff trains your brain to look to approach situations in different ways.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and having a team of people who all approach problems in different ways, like, covers you in it creates such a wonderful mosaic of talent and mentalities that you could like approach any problem and be able to tackle it.
Totally agree. I've had cops on my team. I've had guys that have worked for the Department of Homeland Security. Critical thinking, as you said, is not exclusive to our profession. But can you think? Like, have you ever had a problem that you've had to solve? Did you ever have to create some sort of logic to that problem to fix that problem? If you have, then you can do it. You can do what we do. Are you curious? Do you enjoy knowing how things work? And if you don't know how they work, are you okay with trying to figure it out? Can you sit there and try to figure it out? Can you do it by yourself? Can you do it with a team? Like that, it's not exclusive to our profession, but it's necessary. It's a necessary component of what I think it requires to be, good at this job. Is, can you apply that? Can you think critically? Can you listen? Can you hear what the other person is saying, and can you apply it? And can you Google it? When all else fails, can you jump on Google and figure out what someone else did? Because when you think you are at the end of your rope and you've done everything you can do, someone else has also had that same problem. So can you apply that? Can you see what
Yes.
they've done and try to utilize the same methods that they've done, or get creative and do your own? But can you go that one step further? When you think it's done, can you go one step further and finalize it, just finish it? Um, Man, I this is a great profession we're in, Ryan.
Yeah, it really is. And the surprising thing is that I've been a computer nerd ever since I was little. I grew up with a Commodore 64, with
Oh
an
wow.
Amiga 500, like with all of these things, because my dad was a big nerd with this
Mhm.
stuff too, and had these. I grew up with computers all around me, and but it never occurred to me that I could make working on and with computers my career.
Yeah.
It like I knew about, like, software development and all that stuff, and that there's a little bit of interest there, but that's not what I didn't want to go that way. I wanted to, you know I wanted to get my hands dirty on in the guts of a burnt out PC, that sort of stuff. And it never occurred to me that you could do that outside of a hobby. And
Mhm.
when I made that realization, it was like, just, it was magic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this
And
is this is what I want to do.
oh man, that you said you can do it outside of a hobby. You're right. You can. And the thing about it, I don't know about you, but even working in IT, my hobby is still IT. Like, I love reading about it. Right now, I'm got 50 note cards. Right, I've got thousands of note cards. I'm studying for AWS certification, and I've got 8 IT books all around me. I'm trying to surround myself with it. I try not to become infatuated with it, but it's hard not to, right? It's hard not to, wonder why is a Mac different from a PC? Why is someone who knows Linux, why are they better than me? Like, it's questions like that. I need to have an answer to.
Well, I would like to say that, just because someone knows Linux doesn't mean they're better than you.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, I ask myself the same question a lot. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of my goals. Yeah, I've always one of the one of the pieces of advice that my intern host gave me that has stuck with me. He gave me a lot of advice that really stuck with me.
Mhm.
So Jeff Scar, this is a shout out to you. So he gave me two pieces of advice that really stuck with me. The first one is, it seems so simple. When I was trying to pick out my like what OS I wanted on my work laptop or on my work systems, um, he said pick the one that you're least comfortable with, and that way you use it as your daily driver,
Yeah.
and you become comfortable with it. So like my my main like desktop PC that I had there was a Linux machine. So and
And you
then
became
coming
comfortable
to
with it.
Jump Cloud, I I did the same thing. Like I was at that point I was least comfortable with Macs, and so I've been using a Mac constantly for almost 3 years now, and now I dare say that the OS that I'm least comfortable with is probably Windows.
I just made the transition November to a Mac from Windows, and I don't know if I can go back. It hasn't been that long. I don't know if I can make that transition back. Um, I understand. I agree with you, man. But you're 3 years in the game, so I'm going to have to reach out to you and get some pointers and see what I'm missing out. You know a lot more
Yeah,
in that aspect.
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I still have a lot to learn, and
Hmm.
the guys who run the front line here at our of our IT department here at Jump Cloud, they're going to you know they already surpassed me in some ways, and they're going to surpass me in more ways. Because I'm stepped back into a managerial role, so which is a whole new challenge and requires a whole
Yeah,
new set of skills.
yeah.
But I it will part of one of the challenges is trying to keep my technical aptitude sharp. So that I'm looking forward to
We talked
that.
about that last time about that transition from being a frontline worker to a manager and trying to keep your skills sharp and not wanting to be in the weeds. So I guess let me ask you, what's been the most challenging thing that you've had to face as a manager?
Honestly, delegation. I mean,
Yeah.
part of it, in a way it's easy because I just don't you don't there's only so much time in the day, and one person can only do so much. So I just out of necessity I've had to offload things from my plate onto the other team members' plates. But sometimes it's so I one of my pet projects from when I started here, when I was like the only IT person here at Jump Cloud, is working on a script for automating our onboarding process, and like
Mhm.
that was my baby. It started off as a little next to useless thing, and became like the primary way that we got people you know added into our system and provisioned and everything like that. So one of the second IT hire that we had, he is this is his first IT job, but he's wanting to grow and into more of an engineering role, and so he wants to develop his skills with automation and tooling and everything like that. So I have all these other responsibilities now, so I didn't necessarily have time to sit there and develop the script and keep it up to date, because as features come out in our platform and as new technology comes out, you have to adapt the script. It's a living thing. And so but I had to like I hand that off to him, and that it's now his baby. It's now his, he owns that. And that was really hard for me, and I still have to keep from being like, here I wrote this.
Yeah,
You should implement that. Like I trying to
yeah.
step back, and my involvement with it is as support, so we
Mhm.
can brainstorm and spitball together, and also just providing guidance as to we should look into adding these features and everything like that. But yeah, handing that off and no longer having ownership, of that tool was probably one of the most difficult things that I've had to do.
Man, you're speaking to my heart yet again. I get it, man. I understand. That's been the same with me. You know, I haven't achieved a managerial status, but I've had to build something up and then hand it off to someone when I had an internal promotion. And every now and then I peek up, pop my head up over the cubicle. Hey, how's it going? How's this going? Is there anything I can help with? You know, it's your child, it's your baby, and you put so much
Yeah,
blood, sweat, and tears into seeing it. You just want to, more than anything, you want to see it continue to be successful because you know the type of groundwork that you've done in order to bring it to where it is. You just want to see it to continue to be successful. You want people to use it. You want it to be of use. I think that's more of a testament to your character, though. Honestly, is that you're proud of what you built and you just want to see it. You want to see it thrive, man. It's not wrong with that.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with that at
exactly.
all, right?
Yeah, but and also on the flip side of it, I want to see. I'd be overjoyed to see him take that and turn it into something that's 100 times better than anything I ever made. So I am looking forward to that, and I'll be jumping for joy, and I'm cheering him on the sidelines to reach that goal. So and that's and bring it back around to the original topic. That teamwork,
Yes.
that right there, again, is another thing where you even even when I was working as the only IT person in an organization, I still had to work with other people. I still had
Hmm.
to collaborate with other departments and all that stuff. So any kind of anything, any kind of job, any kind of experience that builds on that team, the ability for teamwork is is huge, is a game changer,
Yes.
and and again should never be looked down on when you're looking at someone trying to break into the IT field.
No, 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 not at all. People, on a piece of paper, they're resources, but you and I know they're critical parts of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
You need people in order to make your organization thrive, and you've got to have people that can interact with others and work together to have a shared goal achieved. You need that. In order to do that, it may require that what I like to call currency. You need
Mm-hmm.
the right currency. You need to know how to motivate people, what they like. Different things motivate different people. I was a claims trainer there, so I had to learn how to help these, adjusters get what we would call A calls. And you have adjuster A over here who she had a family, so you had to know how to motivate her because she's had a long day. She's got to go back home with kids. So how do you motivate her to do her best? Which is going to be different than the recent grad over here who's just more concerned about the party tonight. And you take those same skills and translate them into IT, and now you're working with people with a completely different set of skills, but they've got the same exact needs. They've got families at
Mm-hmm.
home, and they may have had a bad day, but still, what can you do to motivate them, especially when you're working on a team project? I had, chocolate motivates everyone. Chocolate and candy is a great motivator. Conversation is the great motivator. And it's only through those that you can achieve a goal is by, I don't think you can be successful even if the project is achieved. I think there are different levels of success when it comes to achieving a project. I think if you bring it to fruition, of course, which is the main goal of any project, is to complete it successfully, complete it on budget, complete it on time. But I measure my success on projects on if I work with this person on another project, are we going to have the same problems? Did I learn anything about them that could potentially help us on the next set? What can I do to motivate this person differently next time? Because what can I do to motivate myself differently next time? What type of currency can I bring so that way our interactions with each other is just a lot better than it was this time around.
Hmm.
Everyone doesn't have currency, but a vast majority of people do. And at the end of the day, I've learned that people just want to be heard. They just want to be heard.
Yes. Yeah. And that, I don't think I've ever heard of it referred to that way, the using currency, but I like that. I'm going to steal that. And 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 it's also one of the reasons why I really like internal facing IT as opposed
Yeah.
to,
Yes.
external customer support and stuff like that. People who do that, they are amazing,
Great.
talented, more power to
Yes.
them. But what I thrive on is I thrive on those relationships and getting
Hmm.
to know like my coworkers, my colleagues, and you know getting finding out the what, like I said, what motivates different people, how to work best with different people, and 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 being able to use that and build those relationships. And I to me it's a lot easier when you're working essentially with the same pool of people day in and day out.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's I really, yeah, for me, internal IT, corporate IT is where my heart lies because of that, and for all the reasons that you said.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. I've done tech support as well with external customers, and I'm going to stick with this one. I want to stick with working with internal. Sis, man, you said it, man. More power, and I salute everyone who has to deal and with that. I know my strengths and I know my growth areas, and that is one of the growth areas is dealing with those external facing customers with IT related issues. That's a completely different
Yeah,
muscle, man. That's a completely different
yeah,
muscle.
and frankly, here at Jump Cloud, I kind of, in a way, I kind of get the best of both worlds, because
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know I because you're a customer of ours,
yeah.
and
Yes.
and and I get to interact with you and other customers, but more on like that peer level.
Yeah, yeah.
And that that is, I mean, in a way it almost feels like cheating. that,
I
that
can. We can become difficult if you want, Ryan. I don't want to cheat you,
I,
man.
no, I'll take it. I'll accept. Yeah, I'll accept it with a heavy heart, that I'm kind of cheating over over what our customer support team has to do. But yeah, I get it. I've interacted with several of our customers, and it's great that I get to do it, because I mean we can share best practices and commiserate as fellow admins and all that stuff. And I but in the end of the day, I don't answer your support tickets. So,
That's a good way to put it.
and that's a more skills. We mentioned customer service. uh, I think that what this what this episode of the podcast is really, what I would like to see people get out of this episode is, are those people who are like looking to get into IT, who are looking to make that change, or step out of the little small business, the one man shop for a little print shop,
Mhm.
and move into the maybe the more move into corporate IT, or larger roles, is that you have so much more to offer than just what your checklist of accomplishments in IT are.
Yes, man.
And so you should remember that you're bringing a lot of value to the table,
Yes.
in addition to what you have, what's the technical stuff that's running in your head.
Yes. That is right. You are a whole entire person with skills, with memories, with things that you've consolidated from your entire life. You are a package. I wish someone would have
Hmm.
told me that starting out in IT, because I was super green, dude. I started out my first IT job straight out of college. I was a business slash database analyst, super green, and I thought I just had to sit there and work on a database. I had so much more to offer the company, and I sort of pigeonholed myself into thinking that, they hired me to come here and be database guy. So let me just do the database guy. Let me write a select query. Let me do this. That was my only job that I took on. It wasn't until I moved to my second company where they said, "Hey, do you know how to do this? Do you know Excel? Do you know these other technologies?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." So do them. It was only two of us there that worked in IT, and I ended up admitting at that point. I told you I was a jack of all trades. That's when I became a WebEx admin. I became a Salesforce admin, a ClickView admin. I'd work with Microsoft RDS. I work with all these different technologies, and it's because of all the skills that I've brought to the table from my previous jobs. I knew how to think. I knew how to sit still for an hour at a time and figure something out. It's you're more than just what you're doing in that moment. You're a culmination of your total life experiences. And you can take all of those life experiences and you can apply them to your IT career, and you can do wondrous things, and you can push companies forward. You can design, you can build, you can develop. You may not be able to learn Linux, but that's okay because you can do everything else. You can do
Yeah,
so much, man.
yeah, and it goes and taking the same philosophy and applying it to your actual technical skills, to your technical knowledge, also works out because, like, I've made a career out of being the generalist, out of being the jack of all trades, and and I could, IT is one of those industries where you can thrive without having to specialize. I
Yes.
mean, there will always be a place for specialists. I mean,
Hmm.
there's still a need out there for COBOL and Fortran
Yeah. Yeah.
operators. So I mean, that's you. There will, if you specialize, you can find a niche and you can be successful. But also, you don't have to do that. You don't have to feel pressured to go in and be like, okay, I'm going to focus on network security, and that's going to be what I do. Now, if that's your passion, go for it. I'm not going to tell you not to. But again, you don't, when you're coming into IT, it can be overwhelming
Yeah.
because there are so many facets to it. And you may feel like you have to pick one. You don't. You know, I what interests me most about IT changes constantly.
Every day.
and
Yeah.
so I may be, I may be looking at AWS stuff today. I may be looking at Linux tomorrow. I may be, you know going deep into G Suite administration, or just switch configuration. It's There's so much stuff out there, and I am it may be that that at times I have a hard time focusing on one simple thing, but it's but you don't have to feel pressured to go drive into that specialization at first or ever. And just like all of your non-technical skills, build you as a person, add into who you are as a person, all of a wide variety of technical skills does the same.
You hit the proverbial nail on the head. You said it, man. You said a mouthful. It does. And I think about that too. One of the tasks I had when I worked for a non-standard insurance company was to build a way to calculate total for salvage vehicles using KBB, using all these different ways of estimating values for vehicles. I had to build an
Mm-hmm.
Excel spreadsheet, And one of my Excel spreadsheets, I would import to CSV, and I would always lose my trailing zeros, and I could never figure it out. And this was before it was so easy to go in Google. I ultimately figured it out. I had to, import it and then format the columns. Move
Hmm.
fast forward a few years later, I had another job where they kept dropping, deleting zeros from a process. And I said, hey, do you guys know how to import it using this tool? And it worked. And minds were blown. And had I never become a salvage adjuster, I may have not known that you had to have that little, you had to format to keep those trailing zeros. I mean, those leading zeros in Excel. So it's even that technical aspect of a non-technical job was something that I was able
Hmm.
to take and travel with me, and I've never forgotten that. I remember that to this day because Excel can and will drop those zeros off. So you got to know how to
Yeah,
keep them. They're important.
yeah. My thing with that is has to deal with the bane of pretty much every IT person out there, and that's printers.
Ah,
And
yes.
being being that I was an IT person in a print shop, but even before that, when I was working in printing, knowing that a bad font in a PDF can cause printer errors, if or if a printer's putting out like weird like fade boxes, like the design, like knowing that the design of an image can impact the the end result, even if even with things you can't see. Transparency layers are a thing, and knowing that and being able, when somebody says, hey, the printer's broken, I can't print this thing out correct, being able to say, hey, what's going on is this is wrong with the actual file, nothing's wrong with the printer, this is wrong with the file, this is how we fix it, and here we go.
And bam,
So
now you're fixing printers for the entire company.
so yeah, that's it's we could go on and on about
Yeah.
this, because it's it's we have, I would imagine we both have a practically endless supply of examples that we could go through. But I think that we're running up against our time here, and I think we have. I don't want to beat a dead horse with all of this,
Agreed.
but
Agreed.
I think we made some really good points. Anthony, is there anything that you think we should expand on before we wrap things up?
No, I think it was really good. It was kind of cool listening to everything.
All right. Well, that's what I like to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If we entertain Anthony, that means we're doing our job. All right. So, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
Ryan, don't get me started. You've outside of table tennis, bourbon, IT is my passion. So I'll sit here and talk forever, man. I
Oh man.
appreciate you for having me and wanting to hear what I had to say. I thank you very much for your time.
Oh, of course. It was a pleasure having you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll wrap things up. I'll say who you were again. Thank you, and then we will we'll call it a day. So
Okay, okay.
so uh, here we go. So that's all we have for today. Again, my guest is Chavarous Kennebrew, a senior system analyst at Irmax Corporation. Chavarous, thank you very much again for coming on and chatting with me. It has been a pleasure.
My absolute pleasure, Ryan. Thank you guys very much for having me.
All right.
Can you do
So
that again,
that
Ryan?
was
It broke up.
I broke. Okay. All right. That's all the time we have for today. So again, my guest today is Chavarous Kennebrew, the senior system analyst at Irmax Corporation. Chavarous, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with me. It's been a blast.
My absolute pleasure, Ryan. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Where's the Any Key. If you like what you heard, please feel free to subscribe. Again, my name is Ryan Bacon. I lead IT at JumpCloud, where the team here is building a cloud-based directory platform that provides frictionless, secure access to virtually any IT resource from trusted devices anywhere. You can learn more and even set up a free account at jumpcloud.com.